My name is Tobias Borck, and I'm the Research Fellow for Middle East Security Studies here at RUSI. Earlier this month, the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, concluded in Glasgow. In the end, much of the discussion about the outcomes of the conference were about coal and how soon countries around the world can stop using coal as a source of energy. In the coming years, the focus will shift to how and how quickly countries around the world can stop using oil and gas as well. And that will put the spotlight on the Middle East. In fact, I believe that climate change could well be the defining issue shaping developments in the Middle East for decades to come. I think it has the potential to reshape the region's geopolitics and to become a real existential threat to many countries around the region. It is pretty clear that for the last 100 years or so, oil and gas have been key to shaping the Middle East international relations. Securing access to oil and gas has been a key factor driving international intervention in and engagement with the Middle East from the colonial era until today. And within the region itself, oil and gas have shaped the regional balance of power. Countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Qatar have become richer and arguably more influential and powerful than countries without the same natural resource wealth. And so I think it's only reasonable to project that while the world's demand for oil and gas have shaped the region as we know today, the world's decarbonization will have a profound impact on what the region will look like in decades to come. Now, let me just briefly focus on the Gulf monarchies to explain how I think both the effects of climate change and climate action pose enormous and potentially existential challenges to their governments. The Gulf states are not just amongst the world's leading producers of oil and gas, they also rank very highly in terms of per capita emissions. So decarbonization means that they need to fundamentally transform their economic models. Now, just ahead of COP26, Saudi Arabia said that it would reach net zero emissions by 2060, and the UAE says it will do the same by 2050. But while all the Gulf states are already trying to implement economic diversification strategies, they still have a very long way to go. And in order to finance their economic reforms at home, they still need the revenue from selling oil and gas abroad. But as countries around the world are decarbonizing, that window is closing, and so the pressure on governments across the Gulf states is only going to increase over the coming years. They need to move faster, and they will have to become more creative as they try to change their economic systems. And at the same time, the Gulf region and the Middle East as a whole are amongst the parts of the world in which the effects of climate change, and specifically rising temperatures, are already most acutely felt. Now, the summer months have always been very hot in the Gulf, but in recent years, temperatures have been increasing ever further, and that is set to continue. So in the next few years, there's a real possibility that some of the Gulf states could experience days, maybe even weeks at a time, during which temperatures reach levels that are simply too hot to endure for human beings. And so, in short, as we're moving on from COP26 and towards COP27 and 28, both of which will actually take place in the Middle East, first in Egypt and then in the UAE, I think it's pretty clear that both climate change and climate action will be amongst the most important issues for the Middle East in the coming decades. They will shape the region's international relations and have a decisive impact on its political and economic development.